We get into some recruiting fallout from Saturday's big matchup here in Tuscaloosa. To do that for us, my colleague there at BOL, Hank South, 247sports.com, does an outstanding job. Hank, thank you so much for sort of peeking your head out here for a few minutes to join us here on the program.
Hey, no problem. Thanks for having me, Travis.
So where do we start, Hank? I guess we need to start with the official visitors, right? And sort of to this point, and I understand when you have sort of a half dozen or so guys that are expected to be on campus from an official visit standpoint, some guys get home late on Sunday. Some guys, it takes a little bit of time into the early week to sort of get a response from or an understanding of how their trips might have gone. But the vibe that you've gotten so far, at least from an official visitor standpoint, kind of break that down for us.
Yeah, overall, pretty positive. I think the guys, for the most part, obviously it was a very electric atmosphere, big game, college game day in town, SEC Nation, all that stuff. So, from that standpoint, I think it was a big success. Some of the guys got in on Friday. I know Arian Smith, the four-star receiver from Lakeland, got in on Saturday right before the game, left on Sunday. But yeah, we're starting to kind of get some reaction from some of the guys. They hosted a handful. Obviously, Jordan Birch, the number 2 overall player in the country, the 5-star defensive end from South Carolina. He doesn't really say too much. I don't think I've seen an interview from him in a long time, but he was on campus for his official visit. So, third visit this year, a guy that Bama is pushing for that we're still working on getting some reaction from. Darnell Washington, the 5-star athlete that's recruited as a tight end from Vegas. He left yesterday evening. And it sounds like his visit went well as well. Spent some time with Bryce Young. Obviously with Eric Gilbert committing to LSU and Bama still needing that tight end spot filled. He's a guy of intrigue right now, definitely. Zykevis Walker, we actually got to catch up with him last night about his visit. He's the 4-star defensive end from Georgia, and it was the best atmosphere he's seen so far in the whole recruiting process. So definitely was a big hit with him. He's making a decision in a few weeks with a handful of schools in the mix. Jason McClellan, the Oklahoma running back commit, heard the visit went well with him. Same thing kind of with Jordan Birch. He's not going to say a whole lot, but he has maintained a lot of interest in Alabama despite his commitment to the Sooners. So, he'll be a guy we're watching down the stretch at that running back position. And then, like I said earlier, Arian Smith, texted with him a little bit. He's still kind of getting home, getting settled. But, same thing with Darnell. He hung out with Bryce Young. He talked about how much he liked him. And overall the visit was a success. Wasn't as long as typical official visit. Arian Smith, I believe, left yesterday afternoon after getting in on Saturday morning. But overall a success. Bama didn't get the win, but I think they impressed these official visitors.
Were there any surprises in terms of who was expected to show up from that standpoint, Hank, and who didn't, or was it pretty much the roster that Alabama anticipated?
Yeah, it was essentially the guys expected. I think the biggest one that didn't show up, and this happened before, where he's had plans to show up and doesn't end up making it, but that's Zach Evans. I was told he did not go to the game. Stayed home and watched it in Houston. So that was probably the biggest no-show. As far as other guys that we maybe surprise show-ups, I know Kendrick Blackshire, the 2021 linebacker from Texas, ended up coming. He was not on our original list as coming. But beyond that, overall, most of the guys that said they were coming did show up, and then there really weren't too many surprises beyond that.
Couple of different camps in terms of fallout from a game like Saturday's, especially when the host team comes up a little bit short, is that it can be a bit of a buzzkill from a recruiting perspective. But then there's also the outlook that, especially on defense, those guys that were in attendance Saturday should feel like there's a pretty good, obvious, and instant need for some guys on that side of the ball, especially.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, most of the reaction we've gotten from all the guys we've talked to has been nothing but positive. for Alabama. Obviously, Bama fought back in the second half, made it a very close game, and had a couple opportunities, to get ahead of it. But there's been nothing. I've heard nothing from guys, saying, "Oh, this hurts Alabama in any way." And yeah, you brought up an interesting point. Watching the defense, they see opportunities. I know Philip Webb actually said, he saw where he could be needed and help Alabama if he were to choose Alabama. So from that standpoint, I think I don't think the loss really hurt, especially with the kind of game it was. Everyone's been talking about the atmosphere. I don't think this really dings Alabama much. There's been a lot of talk about, coming off of the game, Zach Evans got some crystal balls to LSU. Philip Webb got some crystal balls to LSU. And obviously Jacoby and Guillory, the defensive tackle, committed to LSU. But these are all kind of recruitments that have kind of been trending that way anyway. So I haven't really seen a direct impact just yet on this loss in terms of, hurting Alabama on the recruiting trail.
Never a bad thing when you get your centerpiece or one of your centerpiece recruits for the 2020 cycle on campus, especially from an unofficial standpoint. And I guess that was the case with Bryce Young over the weekend. Any feedback on his latest trip to Tuscaloosa?
Yeah, I heard it was really good. I talked with his dad a little bit, and we'll have some more from Bryce later on BamaOnline.com. But he, like I said about the official visitors, Bryce was there to obviously get back to Alabama and for that atmosphere, but he's also a big part of recruiting for Alabama and finishing out this class strong. Obviously, they're working on adding some more skill positions at wide receiver and tight end, and I know he was talking to Arian Smith all weekend or at the time they had together, and Darnell Washington, and I'm told he had a really good time. And he got there on Friday morning and left yesterday afternoon, so got a good amount of time back on campus after having already taken his official. And I believe he's actually coming back. May not be 100% set yet, but I believe he's coming back in December as well after his high school season ends, which will be a big recruiting period as well with some final official visits before the early signing period.
Only one home game remaining for Alabama now. That's Western Carolina a week from Saturday here in Tuscaloosa. Typically, you don't associate Southern Conference weekend, as it's been called, as a big recruiting weekend. But Alabama projecting, I guess, maybe a visitor or two, maybe even from an official standpoint for that weekend, Hank?
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that kind of unfolds because, typically that weekend isn't a huge one despite it being a home game in terms of official visitor numbers. But if you actually look at the calendar this year, there's only 2 weekends in December for Alabama to be able to host visitors. It's I believe the conference championship is December 7th, if I'm not mistaken, and then December 14th is the next weekend, and then it's the early signing period the following week. So I'll be curious to see if Alabama does decide to host more official visitors. I know there's been a few. I think we'll see more commits take official visits that weekend. I know Jaquez Robinson's coming back that weekend. I'm sure we'll see some more Alabama commits set for that weekend as well. I know Jahmyr Gibbs, the four-star running back from Georgia, is planning an unofficial visit that weekend, but we'll see if that ends up getting turned into an official. So I think we'll see definitely that weekend kind of be utilized more on getting some of these last-minute officials in. Just looking at it right now.
Hank, as we let you go, we're talking with Hank South, recruiting analyst for BamaOnline.com. It's Southern Fried Sports presented by Peterbrook Chocolatier. From a basketball perspective, five-star guard Namari Burnett expected to make his college decision known on Tuesday. Any feel right now about which way Burnett could go? I know Alabama's been crystal balled by multiple individuals to this point. Texas Tech, I guess, in that mix heavily as well.
Yeah, it sounds like it's Alabama or Texas Tech at this point. He has that top four, but those are kind of the two teams that everyone's watching closest. I haven't made a pick yet. I'm not sure I will before tomorrow. Both those schools have given a lot to think about. He was on his official visit to Alabama at the end of September and has stayed in close contact with their staff as well. So we'll see. I think obviously he's a big target of Alabama's, and they're trying to get him in the class. But I know Texas Tech has been getting some buzz lately as well. So. Right now I'm not ready to make a pick, but Bama's in it for him for sure. I think it's the Tide or the Red Raiders.
Yeah, Namari Burnett set to make that announcement tomorrow evening, I guess you could say, Central Time. So you'll want to keep it locked to BamaOnline.com. Going to have some more updates, obviously, from the weekend is Hank South, including one on Bryce Young, his latest trip, the 5-star quarterback from the Los Angeles area in town over the weekend. So a lot of great stuff from Hank South, Tim Watts, and the rest of the crew there at BamaOnline.com. Thanks a lot, Hank.
Anytime. Thanks, Travis.